As the sole heir to an immense fortune, I was told by my parents on my 18th birthday that I was adopted, and that my birth parents had come to find me. Just as I was bracing myself for a life of poverty in some backwater town, I was informed that my birth parents were actually an old-money New York family. So, before I was kidnapped, I was the heir to a New York dynasty. After, I became a billionaire's successor. By all accounts, the only hardship I'd ever endured was an iced Americano. But when I returned to the Ashford family, I discovered they already had a replacement for me, a fake heir. I had been raised by the Vaughns with all the temper of a spoiled prince, but New York's high society, priding itself on being refined, looked down on the arrogant style of a true heir like me. The Ashfords favored the quiet, sensible fake heir, Leo, while looking down on my flamboyant and arrogant ways. In my past life, I bent over backwards trying to please them, catering to their every need, but never earned a single word of praise in return. The engagement arranged for me since childhood was snatched away by Leo, and the woman who should have been my fiancée fell in love with him instead. I took all my anger out on Leo, making his life difficult and setting traps for him at every turn, which only made the Ashfords despise me more. In the end, I reaped what I sowed. I had planned to drive Leo out to the middle of nowhere and abandon him, but during our argument in the car, he panicked and grabbed the steering wheel, causing a crash. At the scene of the accident, my own sister didn't even spare me a glance. Her entire world was focused on that docile little brother of hers. I died alone in a pool of my own blood. Mrs. Ashford, who was already gravely ill, passed away upon hearing the news of my death. And what about Leo? Without me, the villain of the story, blocking his path, he gradually recovered under the meticulous care of my father, sister, and his fiancée, and went on to live a happy life with her. After reviewing my own life story, I was so angry I wanted to curse someone out. Is the author of this story sick in the head? Did I really have to die? Why didn't an ambulance show up before the hospital bill? I was the true heir. My birth family didn't love me, but I still had my family, the Vaughns. Why did I have to obsess over these people who didn't like me? Just because I was the designated bad guy, I deserved to be a stepping stone for the protagonist? Looking back on the past year, I had come from Miami to New York, been ostracized both openly and secretly, yet all I wanted was to please my father and sister. According to the plot, I should have started targeting Leo 6 months ago, making the Ashford father and daughter despise me even more. Now, I had framed Leo for falling into the water, only to be thrown into the pool myself by his fiancée and sent straight to the hospital. That fall, however, woke me up. I sneered. Fine. If the villain has to die sooner or later, I refuse to go out miserably. I'm rich and good-looking, so what if I'm not talented? It's more than enough for me to live a fabulous life. I threw off the covers and was about to get out of bed when the hospital room door opened. It was the daughter of my Ashford uncle, Chloe, my cousin who was a year older than me. Chloe raised an eyebrow at my aggressive posture, setting a thermos aside. Calm down, Your Highness. If you want to settle scores, you need to get better first. She was one of the few people who had been genuinely kind to me since I came to New York. Chloe touched her own cheek and suddenly smiled. What? Suddenly realize your cousin is not bad looking. I immediately looked away and rolled my eyes in annoyance. Late summer in New York already had a chill in the air. As a non-swimmer, I had choked on water and caught a cold, and with the sudden return of my past life's memories, I had been unconscious in the hospital for 3 whole days. Looking around, there were no signs of any other visitors in the room. It seemed Chloe was the only one who had come to see me these past 3 days. I got out of bed and rummaged for my clothes, only to find they were the same ones I wore when I fell in the water. I angrily threw them back in the closet. When had I ever been treated so poorly in Miami? I gritted my teeth, thinking that no one had even prepared a clean set of clothes for me. A paper bag was suddenly held out in front of me. Chloe stood beside me with a helpless smile. I knew Your Highness would need clothes upon waking up, so I prepared them already. Don't be angry. My anger subsided a bit. Remembering how Chloe had always taken the blame for me in my past life, my heart softened. Chloe, you're the best. Chloe jumped back a step in fright. Ethan, did your body get snatched by a ghost or something? Chloe, get out. I instantly reverted to my fierce demeanor. Chloe nodded and briskly exited the room. After changing into the clean clothes, I found my phone in the bag. She's pretty thoughtful, I mused. When I pulled open the door, Chloe was still waiting outside. Seeing me emerge with such intensity, she asked worriedly, "Where are you going?" I snatched the sunglasses from Chloe's collar and put them on, tossing out a single word, "Out." Chloe followed with a confused look, afraid I was going to cause trouble for Leo. It wasn't until we were standing in front of an arcade that she realized, and by the time she turned her head, I was already playing a game. I played for a bit and got bored, then dragged Chloe around the arcade. When we were tired, I suggested we see a movie. By then it was dark, so we found a restaurant for dinner. Chloe finally couldn't help but ask, "You don't usually like this stuff, do you? Why did you rush here right after getting out of the hospital? Did something happen?" What was even stranger was that after waking up, I hadn't once asked, "Are my sister and the others angry?" As if I couldn't care less. I replied casually, "I used to do all sorts of things in Miami. I only toned it down when I came to New York." The truth was, I was afraid I wouldn't have the chance to have fun later, so I had to seize the moment. Chloe scoffed, "Well, you're pretty terrible at it." I immediately shot her a glare, and she quickly shut up. After dinner, New York's nightlife was just getting started. I headed straight for a bar, but Chloe grabbed me. "Are you seriously possessed by something?" I looked at her like she was an idiot. Chloe frowned. "Didn't you say you wanted to be the well-behaved little brother that your sister likes?" I sneered. "Me? Act obedient? The fact that I'm not committing arson and murder is as well-behaved as I get." With that, I walked straight into the bar. Chloe, afraid I'd cause a scene, hurried after me. The bar wasn't too crowded yet. By the time she found me in a booth, I had already downed several drinks. Chloe reached out and pressed her hand on my glass. "Stop drinking." I stared at her hand for a moment, then said softly, "From tonight on, I'm done compromising. I'm Ethan Ashford. I can have anything I want. Why should I have to please people who don't even like me?" Chloe knew who I was talking about and assumed I was just heartbroken by my family. But fueled by the alcohol, I remembered myself when I first arrived in New York, filled with joy at the thought of having more family to love me, only to be stunned when I saw that extra boy in the Ashford house. Victoria told me that, after I disappeared, our mother had a mental breakdown. To soothe her, they went to an orphanage and found a boy who bore some resemblance to me as a child. They taught that boy to imitate my every move. Leo had a timid personality and was always cowering. When Victoria looked at him, she would wonder if her own brother had ever been so scared, and so she gave all her tenderness to Leo. Victoria doted on this substitute brother, but when she looked at me, her eyes held none of that same warmth. When they found me, they were calm to the point of being cold. I thought I would receive more love, but they had already given that love to someone else. They had even found a replacement for me long ago. When had I ever suffered such humiliation? I hated Leo's timid, cowering demeanor. Since he had stolen my place, why was he acting so pitiful now? If he truly felt guilty, why didn't he just leave on his own? At first, I didn't intend to bully Leo. I just wanted my sister and father to notice me. I would bring snacks to Victoria when she worked late and prepare meals for my father when he forgot to eat, but they never cared. They always said, "Leo is so sensible. You should learn from him." Learn what? How to act like some unpresentable charity case. Later, I discovered that even the engagement arranged for me since childhood had become Leo's. Since he dared to take what was mine, he couldn't blame me for retaliating. As I was lost in thought, someone suddenly ruffled my hair. I looked up with a dark expression. Chloe had already withdrawn her hand and raised her glass to clink with mine. "Stop pinning your hopes on other people. Just live in the moment." That sounded right. I tilted my head back and drained my glass. I drunkenly slammed the table, shouting indignantly, "I can count on one hand the number of people I've ever tried to please in my entire life. They should be grateful I even give them the time of day. Yet they dare to ignore me. Well, this prince is done serving them." Chloe, also tipsy, chimed in, "That so-called brother, you're doing the right thing. You're enough on your own, you don't need to compare yourself to anyone. You two were never on the same path anyway." I continued my grand declaration, "Chloe, you're right. I was a fool before. I am one of a kind, and everyone else can step aside." Chloe was completely drunk too, dry heaving while trying to reason with me. We drank until we couldn't see straight, the table and floor littered with empty bottles, and were finally helped to a suite by a waiter. The next morning, I woke up groggily to find myself sleeping at the foot of the bed, while Chloe had passed out on the carpet after getting sick the night before. My head was splitting. Chloe struggled onto the bed, and we both took a while to recover. I had just plugged in my phone and turned it on when a call came through. Feeling awful, I answered without even looking at the caller ID, only to be met with a barrage of yelling from the other end. "Where did you and Chloe run off to? You just woke up and you're already taking her out to disappear? You've got some nerve." That snapped me fully awake. It was my dear sister. I wanted to retort with "none of your business," but my body, still weak from the cold water and the hangover, betrayed me. The moment I opened my mouth, I broke into a violent coughing fit, which woke Chloe up. Chloe groggily asked, "What's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" I answered her in a hoarse voice, "I don't feel well anywhere." Then I hung up the phone. Chloe struggled to her feet, wanting to take me back to the hospital, but I waved her off. "It's nothing, just drank too much." Chloe's brow furrowed tightly. "Who was that?" I tossed my phone into her lap. "Victoria." "What?" Chloe shot up from the sofa, now completely awake. Her sudden panic made my head throb even more. What's with the big reaction? Chloe paced anxiously. Don't you know we'll get disciplined for staying out all night? I rolled my eyes, speechless. You old money families have so many rules. I covered my face, trying to think of a solution for Chloe, when a sudden knock on the door made her jump. I slowly put on my shoes. What are you panicking for? They wouldn't come to get us this quickly. I opened the door to find a hotel attendant holding 2 paper bags. The manager asked me to bring you these clothes and some honey water. The attendant placed the items down and was about to leave when I stopped her. What's your manager's name? His last name is Vaughn. I waved her away, my mind still a complete fog, unable to place the name. By the time we had both cleaned up, it was almost noon. I ignored the mountain of missed calls on my phone, and Chloe didn't even dare to turn hers on. Standing at the entrance of the Ashford mansion, Chloe took a deep breath, her legs feeling a bit weak. I, on the other hand, was decisive and strode right in. The moment I entered, I saw Victoria sitting on the sofa with a grim expression, her gaze fixed on me and Chloe behind me. My heart clenched. For a fleeting moment, I saw myself lying in that pool of blood again, Victoria not even sparing me a glance as she rushed towards Leo. I took a deep breath to suppress the bitterness. One step at a time. It just hurts a little right now. However, my silence and Chloe's timid posture looked like guilt in Victoria's eyes. She questioned coldly, instead of staying in the hospital, where did you go? I replied without expression. I made Chloe take me out to have some fun. Chloe froze, feeling that something was off about my statement. Victoria pressed on. Where did you go? I frowned impatiently. The arcade. And where else? I rolled my eyes. I have no one to hang out with in New York, so I forced her to take me to a bar. Chloe whipped her head around to look at me. When did I ever force you? Victoria sneered. The hand hidden behind her back moved, revealing the faint outline of a disciplinary cane. She stood up and commanded, step closer. We took a few steps forward. Hands out. I didn't move, just stared directly at Victoria. Families like the Ashfords loved to use rules to suppress people, resorting to family discipline at the drop of a hat. But my whole life, aside from the time I was missing, no one had ever dared to lay a finger on me. Even when I bullied Leo, no matter how angry Victoria got, it was always Chloe who took the punishment for me. Seeing that I wasn't moving, Victoria raised her hand, tapping the back of my hand lightly with the cane. My voice held a trace of confusion. Why? The moment I asked, I felt a bit dazed myself. Was I asking why she treated Leo better than her own brother? Or was I asking why she was hitting me now? Victoria said coldly, you pushed Leo into the water. If I don't teach you a lesson, you'll never learn. Just as I thought. I suddenly smiled, a smile tinged with a sense of relief. Chloe's brow was furrowed with worry. My face was pale, the docile act I used to put on for Victoria completely gone, replaced now by a sharp edge. Leo's fiancée, oh right, the one who was supposed to be mine, didn't she already get revenge for your dear brother? Wasn't that enough? In the past, if someone had pushed me into the water, I would have raised hell. But now, I had accepted it was my fault and wasn't even holding a grudge, yet Victoria still wanted to punish me. I let out a cold laugh, which in Victoria's eyes, was a sign of being completely unrepentant. You deserve it. I'm your sister. It's my job to discipline you. In all my years, not counting my past life, this was the first time anyone had ever told me I deserved it, and it came from my own sister. I laughed in anger. Do I deserve this for foolishly hoping for someone's affection? And maybe I did. I suddenly grabbed the cane pressed against the back of my hand and, catching Victoria off guard, yanked it free. Before Victoria and Chloe's shocked eyes, I raised the cane and smashed it violently against the living room's floor-to-ceiling window. Smash! My action completely enraged Victoria. She grabbed my wrist and demanded harshly, what do you think you're doing? I laughed mockingly. Are you blind? This prince must have been brainwashed before, chasing after you and calling you sister every day. Well, I'm done with that. Who do you think you are to discipline me? Fury surged in Victoria's eyes, her grip on my wrist tightening. I winced in pain and struggled hard to break free. Chloe rushed over, trying to pry Victoria's hand off. Victoria, you're hurting him. Victoria ignored her and dragged me into the study. I knew what she intended. The study was the most private place in the Ashford house, and it was where Chloe was disciplined when she broke the rules. That monster, Victoria, she actually wanted to hit me. As soon as the door closed, she released her grip. I stared coldly at the thick cane in her hand. It was nearly as thick as my forearm. My eyes hardened. Fine, you want to beat me to death? Let's see if you have what it takes. The study door was locked from the outside, and I couldn't open it, so I just started grabbing whatever was nearby and throwing it at Victoria. Books, vases, cups, everything became a weapon. As Victoria dodged, she pointed the cane at me, her voice as cold as ice. Are you going to come here or not? I retorted with a cold face. Am I an idiot? Just walk over and let you hit me? I had already retreated to the window, clutching the curtains tightly. With a dark expression, Victoria grabbed me as I turned to find more ammunition and brought the cane down hard on my back. Ah! I doubled over in pain. That blow seemed to calm Victoria down a bit. Just as she reached out to help me up, I spun around and kicked her hard in the thigh. Hiss! Victoria stumbled back a step. Outside, Chloe was knocking frantically on the door. The two of us faced off, one with a scratch on her face, the other with a throbbing back. It wasn't until my face grew paler and paler that Victoria finally sighed. What is it that you want? I sneered. What I want? Weren't you the one who wanted to hit me? Victoria said coldly. You did something wrong. Shouldn't you be punished? That completely ignited my fury. If Victoria had said we deserved to be punished for staying out all night, I might have accepted it. But she was fixated on the idea that I had pushed Leo into the water, completely ignoring the fact that I had also fallen in and suffered. I stared at the window next to me, grabbed a pen holder, and hurled it. Crash! Glass shattered everywhere. Victoria's heart suddenly tightened, as if she were about to lose something incredibly important. Without a second thought, she grabbed me and pulled me away from the window. I broke free from her grip and looked at her coldly. Do you want to continue? Everything that could be smashed in the study was smashed, the window was broken, and Victoria had been worn down by my rampage. She didn't understand why I had suddenly dropped the act, but this was the real me, someone who refused to be taken advantage of. After a long silence, Victoria finally walked over and opened the door for me. I walked out with a cold expression. A group of people was standing outside. Seeing my face, they quickly lowered their heads and pretended they hadn't seen anything. Chloe looked me up and down, and after confirming I wasn't injured, she whispered, "Are you okay?" I scanned the crowd. Except for Chloe, everyone had their heads down, afraid to look at me. Finally, my gaze landed on Leo. Leo stood there, looking frail and worried, clearly wanting to go in and check on Victoria but too scared to move because I was there. My fingers curled slightly. Since I had returned to the Ashford family, Leo had never actually harmed me. And while I was spoiled, I wasn't the type to bully someone for no reason. My Vaughn parents had taught me right from wrong, and besides, with my personality, I disdained trying to please anyone, even blood relatives. I wasn't jealous of Leo. In the end, all those malicious acts were just forced upon me by the plot. The author needed a villain to create hardships for the protagonist, and I just happened to be chosen. But regardless, it was true that I had acted as if I were brainwashed and had bullied Leo in the past. I looked at Leo and sincerely apologized. I'm sorry. I was malicious towards you before and did a lot of bad things. I apologize. It won't happen again. After a pause, I added, if you need any kind of compensation, you can let me know. This scene made everyone watching's jaws drop. Leo looked at me in astonishment. The former familiarity was gone from his face, replaced by a somewhat troubled expression. Leo couldn't help but ask, "Are you okay?" I frowned. What did he mean? Did my apology seem like abnormal behavior to him? I suppressed my emotions, said a final sorry, and turned to walk towards the elevator. Chloe finally snapped out of her shock and hurried after me. In the study, Victoria had also heard the commotion outside. My apology, combined with what I had said downstairs about being brainwashed into calling her sister, left her with a sudden feeling of emptiness, as if she had unknowingly lost something important. The maids outside were whispering among themselves. Victoria stared at them coldly. The Ashford family does not need servants who gossip about their masters. Everyone immediately fell silent and lowered their heads. Victoria gave Leo a thoughtful look, then had the butler take people to clean up the mess before leaving with Leo. They stopped on a deserted terrace. Victoria, for once, showed a rare sign of exhaustion in front of her brother. That whole ordeal with Ethan was more tiring than a non-stop business trip. Leo looked at the scratch on her face, his heart sinking. He pulled Victoria down to sit, carefully wiping away the mark on her cheek. Victoria closed her eyes and leaned back on the sofa, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. After a while, Leo asked softly, "Sister, what's wrong with the young master?" When I first came to the Ashford house, my father and sister had told Leo to call me brother, but I found it repulsive and forbade it. In the end, Leo could only call me young master, just like the servants. Victoria frowned, clearly displeased with the title, but she didn't correct him. Her chest still felt tight and uneasy, and she could only shake her head in response to Leo's question. The siblings couldn't figure out why I had suddenly changed, but they also suspected I might be putting on an act, waiting for them to lower their guard before bullying Leo again. They didn't discuss it further. Meanwhile, I couldn't hold on any longer. I felt dizzy and drowsy, and without even changing my clothes, I collapsed into bed. I was so exhausted I couldn't even lift my eyelids. Chloe's chattering voice grew more and more distant, and the next second, I passed out completely. A phrase suddenly came to Chloe's mind. Some people look fine, but they've actually been gone for a while. She rushed forward and placed a hand on my forehead. She gritted her teeth and muttered, "He's not sleeping, he's fainted." And after he trashed the study and then apologized to Leo. Without another word, Chloe moved to help me up, but I suddenly started struggling, whimpering softly. Chloe quickly asked, "Where does it hurt?" I mumbled in a low voice, "It hurts." Chloe's heart tightened. She was used to seeing my arrogant and domineering side in front of others. She had never seen me so vulnerable. She gently probed a few spots and found that my lower back was in severe pain. She carefully supported me and rushed outside. The Ashford servants saw this and quickly lowered their heads, not daring to stare. Chloe couldn't find Victoria, so she took the elevator directly to the basement, put me in the car, and drove straight to the hospital. Leo saw the car drive away and asked a servant about it. When he learned that the young miss had helped the young master leave, he knew something was wrong. Although I usually bullied him, he also knew I wasn't one to show weakness easily. Being helped out like that meant I must have been in a bad way. He silently watched the car depart, not intending to get involved. Chloe stayed by my side at the hospital, and I finally felt a sense of relief. After an examination, the nurse found a large purple bruise on my lower back, which explained the pain. The high fever was caused by the cold from the pool, the hangover, and the fight with Victoria. Chloe tucked the blanket in for me. Seeing the usually aggressive young master lying here so weakly felt strange to her. My cold face looked better with a wronged expression. Seeing me like this made Chloe's heart ache a little. Back at the Ashford mansion, Victoria was too distracted by me to focus on work. My words, brainwashed into chasing after you and calling you sister, echoed in her mind. She rubbed her temples, the movement pulling at the scratch on her face. Victoria touched the wound, lost in thought. The Ethan in the study today was actually a lot like her. Both of them were holding in their anger, neither willing to back down, resulting in a situation where they both got hurt. Victoria suddenly remembered that she had indeed hit me with the cane. At the time, I had stubbornly talked back to her, and then I had suddenly apologized to Leo. She was so surprised by my change in attitude that she had forgotten the force of that blow. She never held back, and even Chloe couldn't handle it, let alone me. A sense of urgency gripped Victoria, and she hurried upstairs to my room. When she reached the door, she found it ajar and frowned. The Ashfords valued their privacy. Room doors were usually kept closed except for cleaning. She pushed the door open to find the room completely dark. My suite was made up of several connected rooms. Victoria called my name, but only an echo answered. She walked to the railing and called down to the servants below. "Where is the young master?" The servants exchanged glances before one stepped forward to answer. "The young miss took the young master out." "Took him," Victoria repeated. Usually it was Ethan who took Chloe out. Why was it the other way around this time? The servant added, "The young miss was supporting the young master when they left." Victoria's brow furrowed, and she immediately took out her phone to call Chloe. Beep. Chloe glanced at the caller ID and turned her phone off. I was leaning against the headboard, eating the fruit she had cut for me with my non-forehand. Seeing her reaction, I looked up and asked, "Who was that?" Chloe continued peeling an apple and said nonchalantly, "A friend asking me to hang out." I was a bit confused. "Why don't you go?" Chloe laughed in exasperation. "Ethan, do you have a heart? I rushed you to the hospital when you were about to burn up into an idiot, and now I'm here cutting fruit for you, and you're trying to get rid of me?" I gave an embarrassed smile. "It just slipped out. I'm not trying to kick you out." Chloe ignored me, taking her frustration out on the fruit in her hands. Meanwhile, Victoria, hearing the busy signal, tried calling my number instead. This time it went through, but the ringtone came from my room. Victoria immediately called her executive assistant and told him to find out where we were. "I don't want any more." I pushed the remaining fruit away, my eyes fixed on the fluid slowly dripping. Chloe grabbed my leftover fruit plate and quickly finished the rest. Seeing me lost in thought, she hesitated for a moment before asking, "What happened between you two in the study?" I rubbed my tired eyes and said calmly, "Victoria wanted to hit me and I refused. She locked the study door, so I had no choice but to trash her study." At my casual reply, Chloe swallowed hard and held up 2 fingers. "Do you have any idea how much you destroyed in there?" I sneered. "So what?" I showed mercy by not wrecking the entire Ashford mansion. Chloe recalled the fleeting scratch on Victoria's face when she opened the door and silently nodded. True enough, he even managed to injure her. This kid was something else, daring to challenge his older sister at such a young age. Chloe thought for a moment and asked again, "Then why did you suddenly apologize to Leo?" At the door of the hospital room, Victoria stopped and raised a hand to silence the person behind her. My cold voice came from inside. "I apologized because I was wrong." "What? Do you all think I'm possessed or have some ulterior motive?" Chloe quickly tried to smooth things over. Of course not, I just thought it was a bit sudden. I sneered, is there anything I can't have? Only a complete idiot would waste time trying to win over someone who doesn't care. As for the Ashford family, if it weren't for my mother, I never would have come back. Chloe sighed helplessly and said no more. Outside the room, Victoria stood in silence. Her assistant, Miss Frost, secretly glanced at the scratch on her boss's face, marveling to herself. It seemed this young master was not to be trifled with. The next moment, Victoria abruptly turned and left. Miss Frost was stunned for a second before hurrying to catch up, wondering why her boss would come all the way to the door and not go in. In the room, the medication slowly lulled me to sleep. Chloe stayed until my 4 was finished, then rested on the visitor's bed. When I woke up again, the sky was completely dark. Chloe took out her phone. It was already past 10 o'clock. It was quiet outside the VIP room. She rubbed her eyes. A male voice suddenly spoke from the darkness. I'm so hungry. Chloe jumped, then snapped. If I starve to death, does that mean you get a feast? I just let out a soft "oh." My response left Chloe with no energy to argue. She got up and asked, what do you want to eat? I blinked. A funeral banquet. Chloe laughed in exasperation. You really hold a grudge, you little brat. She turned on the light and was about to order food on her phone when she saw a thermos on the table. She recognized it as belonging to the Ashford family. Opening it, she found corn and pork rib soup. Chloe looked at me, her eyes asking, want some? I was still annoyed and deliberately turned my head away. Chloe sighed. Fine, I'll order. She found a porridge place I thought was decent and placed an order. She was hungry too, and not bothering to wonder who had sent the soup in the thermos, she started drinking it since I wouldn't. I was starving, and seeing Chloe enjoying it so much, I turned my back to her, pretending to be angry. Chloe saved a small bowl for me and raised an eyebrow. Are you sure you don't want any? I kept my eyes closed, ignoring her. I could guess with my eyes closed that the soup was from Victoria, who wanted her charity. I was still furious, and the sight of anything from her just annoyed me. Besides, she hadn't bothered with me at all when I was hospitalized before. Why was she pretending to be nice now? Did we fight our way into a friendship? After eating a little, Chloe lay back down on her bed. Unable to sit still, she deliberately teased me. Are you feeling unwell anywhere else? I kept my eyes closed. My heart feels unwell. Maybe only a funeral banquet can cure it. Taking advantage of her long legs, Chloe kicked the insolent guy on the hospital bed. The kick shifted me a bit, but I remained on my side, silent. After a while, just as Chloe thought I had fallen asleep, I suddenly spoke. If I die, can you make sure my funeral is a lively affair? There should be sweet and sour ribs, braised meatballs, garlic shrimp. What else? Let me think. Before I could finish, Chloe kicked me to the edge of the bed. I threw off the covers, sat up, and glared at her furiously. Not only did Chloe kick me, but she also climbed onto my bed, pinched my cheeks, and said with a serious face, what nonsense are you talking? Spit it out. Spit out that bad luck. With my cheeks being pinched, I frowned and glared at her, my eyes warning her to let go immediately. When Chloe didn't hear me spit, she did it for me to ward off the bad luck. As she let go, she gave my cheek a little rub. It felt surprisingly nice. I rubbed my reddened cheek and fell back onto the bed. As the villain, my fate was to die in a way that highlighted the protagonist. How annoying. If I died, what would my mom, dad, and sister do? They would be heartbroken. I hate this author, I hate this plot. My face was clouded with worry, which made Chloe look at me quizzically. You're fine. Why are you suddenly thinking about these things? What set you off? I rubbed my still aching cheek, not wanting to talk to her. Chloe looked at my gloomy expression but couldn't get anything out of me, so she just stared at me, pondering. Why did he suddenly decide to stop trying to please Victoria? Why did he suddenly apologize to Leo? And now, why was he worried about dying for no reason? The more Chloe thought about it, the darker her expression became. Just then, a knock came from outside the room. Hello, your delivery is here. Coming. Chloe took the delivery from the door and turned around to see a certain someone no longer rubbing his face, but sitting quietly at the small table by the bed, his eyes gleaming as he stared at the food in her hands. Chloe chuckled, opened the container for me, and handed me a spoon. Go on and eat, you little tyrant. I felt like my days were numbered, and I refused to waste any more time in the hospital. The next day, after another injection, I couldn't take it anymore. I packed my things and prepared to leave. Chloe tried to persuade me, but it was no use, so she ended up leaving with me. After getting some rest, my back still hurt, but I felt fine otherwise. I figured that since my time was short, I couldn't waste it getting entangled with the Ashford family and people I disliked. I immediately told Chloe to book a ticket for me. I wanted to be in Miami the very next second, unwilling to spend another moment in this heartbreaking city of New York. I went back to the Ashford mansion to grab my ID. I didn't even want to pack clothes. With just my phone in my pocket, I was ready for the airport. I stood at the gate waiting for Chloe to pick me up. From the hospital to the mansion, I hadn't run into a single person who would cause me trouble. I glanced back at the house, a little puzzled. Could it really be this easy to leave? I had a vague feeling that something was wrong, but I quickly shook my head. No, I refuse to be the villain of this story. Whoever wants the role can have it. I raised my hand to shield my eyes from the sun, casting a shadow over my face. When I successfully got into Chloe's car, my happiness was so palpable that even she could feel it. Chloe seemed a bit reluctant. Are you really leaving? I looked at her and smiled brightly. Don't worry, I won't forget you. You can come visit me in Miami anytime, Chloe said quietly. But your university is in New York. I fell silent and scratched my head. But if I was going to die soon, I could probably skip college, right? I was still debating whether to ask my parents to transfer me to a university in Miami when my phone suddenly rang. A bad feeling washed over me. Young master, Mrs. Ashford has suddenly taken a turn for the worse. Please come quickly. The voice echoed through the car's speakers. The next second, Chloe spun the steering wheel and headed towards the private clinic. By the time we arrived, Victoria and Leo were already there, standing on the rooftop with medical staff, trying to talk Mrs. Ashford down from the ledge where she sat, her legs dangling in the air. The sight nearly made my heart stop. I had run all the way here and was already out of breath. Now I could barely breathe at all. Chloe quickly steadied me, and we tiptoed forward, terrified of startling the woman on the ledge. Victoria and the medical staff cleared a path for me. Mom! I called out in a hoarse whisper to the woman clutching a teddy bear. She heard my voice, glanced at me, then looked back down at the bear in her arms and said, Ethan, my Ethan, won't you call me Mom too? Mrs. Ashford's voice was gentle, as if she truly believed the toy was her son. I glanced at the bear. In my past life, I could never recall my memories from before I disappeared, and I never felt a son's affection for this sick woman. But now, by some twist of fate, I remembered. That was the teddy bear I used to sleep with as a child. Back then, my mother would hold me and I would hold the bear. Mom, you're holding your treasure, and I'm holding mine. The gentle woman would smile and hug me, saying, Ethan's treasure is my treasure too. Mommy will protect my treasures. Memories that were a lifetime late now came flooding back, and tears streamed down my face. I took 2 steps forward and choked out, Mom, you're holding the wrong one. The bear is my treasure. You should be holding me. Mrs. Ashford finally turned to look at me. After a long moment, she murmured absently, Your treasure. I nodded repeatedly, tears falling to the ground with each movement. I'm Ethan. Can you hold me, please? Without realizing it, I was now standing just a step away from Mrs. Ashford. Looking at this boy who called himself Ethan, she instinctively reached out to me. She pulled me into a hug, and the medical staff and Victoria behind us helped guide her away from the edge of the roof. My heart finally settled back into my chest. I remembered how my mother used to tell me bedtime stories every night, how she kept the teddy bear pristine because I loved it, even tucking it in when she tucked me in, all because I said I liked it. And in my past life, when news of my death arrived, this woman who had missed her son for half her life immediately passed away. The feeling of having lost and then found something precious filled my chest, and I sobbed uncontrollably in my mother's arms. Mrs. Ashford gently patted my shoulder, over and over. She said, My Ethan, don't cry. My Ethan. My mother's voice slowly calmed me down. On the rooftop, the medical staff had left, and Leo had gone with them. Only Victoria and Chloe remained with us. I took Mrs. Ashford's hand and led my mother downstairs, one step at a time. Mrs. Ashford kept her eyes fixed on my tear-stained face until we were all back in her room. I helped her sit on the sofa and asked softly, Mom, why do you keep staring at me? She raised a hand to wipe away my tears, her voice flat yet innocent. You look so sad. I forced a smile and took a handkerchief to wipe her hands. As long as you're okay, Mom, I won't be sad. Mrs. Ashford nodded as if she understood. After I helped her fall asleep and stayed with her for a while longer, I finally left the room. Victoria and Chloe were waiting outside together. Just as I came out, Chloe asked the crucial question, how did the rooftop door at the clinic get opened? And why today of all days? Victoria had already investigated the clinic and frowned deeply. A security guard went up to the roof for a smoke and forgot to lock it. Chloe was about to say more, but I raised a hand to stop her. I had a feeling I knew why. In my past life, no security guard had ever forgotten to lock the rooftop door, leading to my mother ending up on the ledge. It had to be the force of the plot, preventing me from leaving New York, keeping me here to play my part as the villain. I turned and glanced at my sleeping mother through the glass in the door, then turned back, planning to leave with Chloe. But Victoria suddenly called out to us. What did you just say? Why today? What's so special about today? I turned my head and raised an eyebrow at Chloe. What's with that mouth of yours? Chloe closed her eyes. It was all because Victoria was too sharp. Victoria watched our subtle exchange, waiting for an explanation. I left the mess for Chloe to handle and made my escape. Chloe tried to slip away too, but Victoria grabbed her by the scruff of the neck. Defeated, Chloe told the truth. We were on our way to the airport when we turned back. Victoria frowned. Where were you planning to go? Ethan was planning to go back to Miami. Back to Miami? Having said that much, Chloe remembered how pitiful Ethan had looked in the hospital. She pushed away Victoria's hand gripping her collar and said impatiently, Victoria, even if Ethan did push Leo into the water, he already paid for it. Someone did the same to him, and he was unconscious in the hospital for 3 days. Did you have to come back and beat him half to death? He's your brother. For God's sake, show some mercy. Victoria's hand was empty. She instinctively clenched her fist. How is Ethan? His back is swollen. He had a high fever when you hit him. He almost fried his brain. Chloe looked resentfully at the sister who usually disciplined her without mercy. And look at Ethan's build. How many hits like that do you think he can take? When I was taking him to the hospital, I accidentally touched his injury, and he mumbled in his sleep that it hurt. I really don't know how you can be so cruel. For once, Chloe had left Victoria speechless. Having defended me, she decided to let her older sister reflect on how heavy-handed she had been and left. Victoria was left standing alone, along with Leo, who emerged from around the corner. Leo walked up to his sister. Seeing her dark expression, he asked softly, Sister, are you okay? Victoria looked down at her concerned brother and shook her head. As she drove Leo back to the mansion, her mind was filled with Chloe's words and the image of Ethan's swollen eyes. Ethan wanted to go back to Miami. He was badly hurt, and his emotions today had been a roller coaster. He said he had no memories from before he was 5, and his feelings for their mother had never been so intense before. Suddenly, there were many suspicious things about Ethan. At the mansion's entrance, just as Leo was about to open the car door, Victoria suddenly said, Leo, do you think? Leo waited for her to continue. Victoria closed her mouth and waved her hand. It's nothing. Go on. Leo nodded quietly. Okay, sister. The rooftop of the Ashford mansion had a garden tended by a professional. After I arrived, I had a greenhouse built up there, along with a wicker chair, where I would usually curl up when I was in a bad mood. My gaze was fixed on a number in my contacts. My finger hovered over the screen, wanting to dial it several times, but I ended up sighing and turning the screen off. The next moment, my phone rang. I forced myself to sound cheerful. Mom, why are you calling me? Did you miss me? Hearing my voice, Mrs. Vaughn couldn't help but smile, playing along. Yes, I did. You haven't called your mom in a week. I missed you. A lump formed in my throat. I raised a hand to cover my eyes, but my voice betrayed nothing. I've been a bit busy lately and forgot to call. I'm sorry, Mom. Listening to Mrs. Vaughn's concerned voice, asking if I was happy in New York and if I had been wronged, tears streamed from the corners of my eyes. I forced a laugh and said lightly, You know who your son is. Who could possibly wrong me? You, on the other hand, Mom, you need to take good care of yourself while I'm not home. Hearing her son's concern, Mrs. Vaughn's laughter seemed to spill out of the phone. Several times, I wanted to say that I wanted to go back to Miami, that I didn't want to stay with the Ashfords, but the irresistible force of the plot kept me here. I didn't want my parents to worry, so in the end, I swallowed all my troubles. After hanging up, I curled up in the wicker chair, thinking about my past life, my unhealthy attachment to the birth father and sister who had appeared out of nowhere, and my constant torment of the insecure Leo. Back then, my mind had no room for the Vaughn parents who had raised me with deep love, nor for my Vaughn sister who had taught me to be reasonable. It was only at the very end of my life that I remembered them, but by then, it was too late. But now, there should have been time to fix everything. The thought of myself lying in a pool of blood in my past life made my whole body ache as if it had been crushed. In the greenhouse, I fell into a dream of my past life. I dreamt that after I died, Mrs. Ashford soon followed, and the Ashford family lived happily ever after. Meanwhile, the mom and dad who had raised me collapsed in despair over my remains. Even my usually composed sister rushed back from abroad, losing her composure for a rare moment. I floated in the air as a ghost, desperately trying to return to my body. My hands passed through my parents' bodies. No one could hear my voice. Everything was telling me that it was too late. I had chased after something that wasn't mine, and in the end, I paid the price, causing unbearable pain to everyone who loved me. I squeezed my eyes shut as tears streamed down my face. I clutched the collar of my shirt, trying to make it easier to breathe. A loud clap of thunder outside the greenhouse finally jolted me from the dream. My eyes were unfocused as I slowly released my grip on my collar, gradually steadying my breathing. The late summer storm came without warning. After the thunder, a torrential downpour began, drumming against the greenhouse roof and echoing in my heart. Exhausted, I collapsed back into the wicker chair, seeking a moment of peace amidst the overwhelming sound of the rain. The sound of the heavy rain could drown out many things. It temporarily dispelled my fear and also masked the sound of Leo's footsteps. It wasn't until a thin blanket was draped over me that I silently opened my eyes and met Leo's gaze. A flicker of unease crossed Leo's face. He clearly hadn't expected me to be awake. My eyes were swollen, and my expression held a hint of helplessness. Even so, my silent stare didn't seem to frighten him as it used to. My face was calm, but inside, I was dying of embarrassment. I was sure the tear tracks on my face weren't even dry, and facing Leo now was as awkward as it could possibly be. We stood in silence for a moment before Leo turned and left. Just as Leo was about to step out of the greenhouse, I said softly, "Thank you." The figure at the door paused for a second, then left. I wiped my face and stood frozen for a moment before heading back to my room to wash my face. I looked at my swollen eyes in the mirror and thought back to the recent scene, my head aching with embarrassment. How is it that since I woke up, not a single happy thing has happened? Is my energy just not compatible with the Ashford families? I thought about it. Since I couldn't leave New York, at least I didn't have to live in the Ashford house, right? I didn't want to see the Ashford siblings either. Although Leo was innocent, after everything that happened in my past life, I couldn't possibly be friends with him. I'm the villain of the story. He should know better than to provoke me by getting close. I remembered that when I first came to New York, Mrs. Ashford had a moment of clarity and gave me some assets. I hadn't looked at them closely. Where did I put them? With a cold towel pressed to my eyes, I scanned the room. My fingers tapped on the dresser. I spotted a multi-layered jewelry box on a shelf in the corner. I think what my mother gave me was a jewelry box. The jewelry box was made of rosewood, with 7 layers, and was secured with a small lock. I searched the entire room for the key and finally found it in the safe. When I opened the box, the top few layers were filled with jewelry, jade bracelets, necklaces, rings, and even ornate hairpins, all neatly arranged. They looked quite old, probably my mother's jewelry from when she was young. There were also some receipts from a bank for stored valuables. I pulled out a lower drawer and found 2 stock transfer agreements. One was for 10% of the Jiang Corporation's shares. The Jiang family was my maternal grandmother's family, but after my mother fell ill and the Ashfords took in an adopted son, the 2 families had grown distant. The contract was signed by Eleanor Jiang, stating that upon her death, all her shares and assets would go to Ethan Ashford. My hand trembled uncontrollably, and my slightly less swollen eyes began to sting with tears again. I tilted my head back to stop them from falling and continued to open the other drawers. The rest were all property deeds and bank cards. I did a rough calculation. This jewelry box likely contained all of my mother's assets, and she had given them all to me. That day, Mrs. Ashford had casually held my hand as we sat in the sun on the balcony, only giving me the jewelry box as I was about to leave. I had asked, "What is this?" Mrs. Ashford had simply smiled. "A gift from Mom. I should have given it to you a long time ago." So I accepted it. Back then, I was so obsessed with other things that in my past life, I never even opened this jewelry box. And in this life, opening it a lifetime late, I finally understood how much this woman, who had lost her mind with grief over her missing son, truly loved me. My hand rested on the rosewood lid, where a single initial was carved, E. In the end, I chose a large penthouse apartment close to my university. Although the Vaughns also had property in New York, I didn't want them to know how unhappy I was with the Ashfords. When the Ashford father and daughter came to Miami to persuade me to return, they had put on quite a show for my sake. And when I arrived in New York and found out about Leo, for some reason, I never told my family in Miami that the Ashfords already had an adopted son. I put the precious jewelry box away safely, then went out and grabbed a random maid to help me pack. I also notified the butler to take a few people to my new place to clean and check the utilities. The butler was a smart man. Having witnessed my battle with Victoria in the study, he knew better than to ask questions and cause trouble for himself. As for whether he would tell the Ashfords, I didn't care. Victoria was probably thrilled that I was leaving. I sneered inwardly. They begged me to come, yet failed to mention that the family already had a Leo. Were they looking down on me or on him? I hated these hypocrites. Just as I expected, the butler reported my moving plans to Victoria. Victoria's first reaction was a surge of baseless anger, but then Chloe's words about how badly she had hurt me with the cane echoed in her ears. She was silent for a moment before finally saying, "Let him do as he pleases." It wasn't until the next day, when the maid started moving my things, that Chloe found out I was moving out of the Ashford house. She blocked my path without a word, looking furious. I looked up at her and said without emotion, "What? Are you trying to stop me?" Chloe looked heartbroken. "What do you mean by that? What kind of question is that?" I raised an eyebrow, waiting for her to continue. "Why didn't you tell me you were leaving? Why didn't you ask for my help?" I pointed to my packed belongings with my chin. "There. Help me move that." Chloe's anger suddenly deflated. "Why didn't you tell me you were moving? What was there to say? If you really miss me, can't you just come find me?" I didn't get it. I was just moving to a different place, not leaving New York like I had planned before. "Can I live with you then?" Chloe asked tentatively. I had no objection. "Sure, but you have to bring your own stuff." The place was big enough with plenty of rooms. That seemed to appease Chloe, and she followed behind me, helping carry things. I did a final check to make sure nothing was left behind, then pointed to the jewelry box in the back of my room and told Chloe to grab it. Then we left the Ashford mansion with my belongings. Chloe got her wish and left with me. In the Ashford mansion, two figures stood before their respective floor-to-ceiling windows. Separated by a wall, Victoria and Leo watched the direction I had gone, silent for a long time. Whatever my intentions were for coming here, my departure was decisive, without a single backward glance. I couldn't be bothered with what others thought. I left feeling happy. Although I hadn't left New York, leaving the Ashford house felt like a small step forward. I couldn't hide my excitement, and neither could Chloe. We had just stepped into our new home when Chloe's belongings arrived right after. A question mark slowly formed above my head. Chloe walked to the door of the room I had just picked out for myself and pointed inside. "Put my things in there. Whatever. I'll just let this silly girl have her way." Chloe got her wish to live with me. Once everything was settled, we decided to go out for a celebratory dinner. But perhaps our move from the Ashford house had gone too smoothly, because the moment we entered the restaurant, we ran into one of my sister's unwanted admirers. It was no secret among New York's elite that the newly returned Ashford heir was arrogant, unruly, and disliked by his own sister. People just didn't dare say it out loud. This particular wealthy suitor, however, was one of the few who dared. The reason was simple: he wasn't very bright. It was just that every time he had encountered us, Victoria happened to be present. Chloe had always been afraid of her older cousin, and I was desperate to win Victoria's favor back then, so we both acted obediently. This gave the suitor the impression that he was superior to us. Julian Dalton watched as the two of us glanced at him and then tried to walk past as if he weren't there, and he was instantly displeased. His family's status in New York was second only to the four great old money families, and their business partnerships with the Ashfords were only growing stronger. He genuinely liked Victoria, and his family was keen on a marriage alliance with the Ashfords, so he was confident he could win her over. Since he planned on marrying the Ashford heiress, he was naturally displeased that these two younger Ashfords were ignoring him. Julian Dalton blocked my path, putting on the air of a future brother-in-law. "Ethan, Chloe, where are you two off to?" Chloe looked around and asked me, "Did we come to the wrong place? Don't people come to restaurants to eat? Or am I blind?" I pretended to ponder. "Perhaps Mr. Dalton has other business to attend to here, but we can't get involved in anything illegal." Chloe nodded and started to walk around Julian. After being subjected to our sarcastic remarks, Julian's face turned cold. How dare these two brats imply he was involved in shady business? They truly had no manners. The Ashford family was known for its strict discipline. They must have been punished often. Julian sneered, just as expected from a child raised on the outside. "No manners at all. Your sister Victoria must be too busy to teach her own brother some discipline. How about this? I'll help her out and teach you a thing or two myself." I finally gave Julian a proper look, my expression filled with impatience. "You think you're worthy?" Julian was surrounded by a few cronies, sons of smaller companies dependent on the Dalton Corporation, who usually fawned over him. When had they ever heard someone disrespect Julian so openly? Even if there were people in New York who looked down on the Daltons, they usually maintained a facade of high society decorum and wouldn't be as blunt as I was. Julian's face stiffened, and he cursed me internally for my arrogance. I couldn't care less what he thought. I just found him pathetic. I hadn't done anything to him, so why was he coming over looking for a verbal beatdown? He was just as annoying as Victoria, always going on about rules. I glanced at the man blocking my way and sneered, "Who the hell are you to talk to me about rules? Just because I haven't been in New York for long, you all think you can disrespect me? You think every stray cat and dog has the right to lecture me on etiquette?" My face clearly said, "Don't mess with me." But I don't know if Julian had a screw loose, because he insisted on causing trouble. I looked at his face, which had turned pale with anger, as he still foolishly blocked my path. With 2 fingers, I gave him a light push, a cold smile on my face. "Where I'm concerned, the name Ethan Ashford is the only rule." "Got it." I tilted my head, raised an eyebrow at Julian, and walked past him with Chloe. Mr. Dalton, next time you see me, remember to take a detour. We were all well-dressed and had an air of prominence, so our little scene had already attracted furtive glances from others. After Ethan left, Julian shot a vicious glare at the onlookers, trying his best to maintain a calm facade as he left the restaurant with his cronies. Ethan, just you wait, you arrogant, clueless brat. I'll get you sooner or later. Meanwhile, the two of us didn't give the little incident a second thought. At the dinner table, Chloe tentatively asked, "When are you going back to school?" That's when I remembered what I had forgotten. Alright, I was still a student. I had attended university in Miami for half a year before the Ashfords brought me back to New York. They had arranged everything for my schooling here. I heard they had donated a lot of money to the university I was attending, even funded several new buildings. My Ashford uncle was also in politics, so things that were impossible for ordinary people were effortless for the Ashfords. They had arranged a top university and a major that suited me, but they hadn't given me the love I deserved. The Ashfords had poured all their affection onto Leo, which was why in my past life, I had become resentful, committed many evil deeds, and died alone. I tightened my grip on my chopsticks and let out a breath of frustration. So, when does the school want me to start? Seeing that I wasn't resistant, Chloe continued, "The school hopes you'll come back as soon as possible, of course. Your sick leave is over, so you should be in class right now. But of course, the university wouldn't penalize me for not attending. They had most likely extended my leave." But I looked up. "Then why aren't you in school?" Chloe scratched the back of her head, her eyes darting around. "I took a leave of absence too." Victoria definitely didn't know about that. I rested my chin on my hand and watched her. Chloe casually grabbed a piece of fruit from the fruit platter and stuffed it in my mouth. "Just eat." I laughed and leaned back in my chair. "All right, let's go to school tomorrow then." After all, I couldn't leave New York right now, and I didn't know what else to do. The only thing I could do was stay away from the Ashford siblings. Was I really the villain of the story? I thought about my life. Aside from the kidnapping, everything had been pretty smooth sailing. So, does that mean all the hardships of being a villain were waiting for me later? It hadn't even been that long, and I had already accepted this reality. I took a listless bite of fruit. The next day, we both woke up early for class, only to realize we had forgotten something important. Rubbing our empty stomachs and staring at the empty street, we both fell silent for a long time. Chloe asked, puzzled, "What are we going to eat? How are we getting to school? I'm not even fully awake yet. Where's my car? Ethan, where's my food?" We had been so happy about moving that we forgot to arrange for a housekeeper or a driver. Even my cars were all still at the Ashford mansion. Although I had chosen an apartment that was close to the university, it was still a 10-minute drive away. I rubbed my eyes, still feeling sleepy. "How about we just skip today and go back to sleep?" "No way." Chloe immediately refused. "I have to go today. My advisor said if I don't show up, she's going to call Victoria." I turned to leave. "You go then. I'm going back to sleep." I didn't even know how much longer I had to live. I could be sacrificed for this stupid plot at any moment, so going to class didn't seem that important. Chloe grabbed me and pulled me down onto a bench by the road. I called a cab. "Stop sleeping. We're going to school." I leaned on her shoulder, my eyes half closed, dozing off. A moment later, a car pulled up in front of us. I mumbled, "That cab got here fast." I opened my eyes and found myself looking directly at the face that slowly came into view behind the car window. The sleepiness on my face instantly vanished, replaced by a cold expression. Victoria, who already looked indifferent, averted her gaze. "Get in." Chloe had gone silent the moment she saw Victoria's car. She was terrified Victoria would ask why she hadn't been to class these past few days. Ignoring my resistance, she whispered in my ear, "Ethan, help your cousin out just this once. It's a free ride, we shouldn't waste it." I had seen how Victoria disciplined Chloe before, so I felt a pang of pity and got in the car with her. Once we were settled, Victoria handed 2 breakfast buns to Chloe and said as she drove, "Starting tomorrow morning, a housekeeper will come every day to cook for you. Next time you need to go out, call the driver in advance." Chloe nodded eagerly. "Okay, thank you, Victoria." I remained silent, closing my eyes and pretending to sleep as soon as I got in. Chloe didn't dare eat in Victoria's car. Unable to sit still, she suddenly thought of something and asked, "Victoria, you're so busy with work. Why did you come all this way to pick us up?" I listened to her question, speechless. Obviously, she was dropping Leo off at class and decided to swing by to see if Chloe was going to school. Victoria saw the sarcastic smirk on my face in the rearview mirror and decided against saying what she was about to say. She had simply thought that since we had moved out, there was no one to take care of our daily needs. Since the driver was taking Leo to class in the morning, she decided to drop us off as well. But Ethan was so hostile towards her now that she couldn't bring herself to say anything. The security guards didn't dare stop the Ashford car, so Ethan and Chloe were dropped off right at the entrance of their academic building. We were used to being conspicuous and didn't think anything of it. I didn't wait for Chloe to say goodbye to Victoria and started walking towards the building. I was a sophomore and Chloe was a junior, so our classes were in different buildings. But Chloe still caught up to me and shoved the breakfast bun into my hand. I frowned. Chloe pressed my hand down. "Your Highness, why are you fighting with your own family's food? Weren't you hungry?" With that, she scurried off before I could reply. I weighed the bun in my hand and figured she had a point. After all, my last name was still Ashford. I walked to my major-specific classroom, found a seat in the back, and started eating my breakfast. The Ashfords might have their faults, but their chef was excellent. I was not cut out for academics. It wasn't until the professor started the lecture that I realized I hadn't brought my textbook. I thought about it. My books were probably still at the Ashford mansion. Textbooks weren't on my packing list, and the Ashford servants wouldn't dare touch my things without permission. I pondered for a moment, then leaned back in my chair, instinctively wanting to pull out a novel to read like I used to. But then I remembered I was living in a novel myself, and one with a bad ending, which immediately put me off the idea. The professor was lecturing at the front of the room. I struggled to listen for a few moments, then peacefully fell asleep. I slept until the class ended. Chloe sent me a message saying to meet her for lunch later. I went to a vending machine and bought 2 bottles of water first. Students were rushing around campus. The next big lecture was about to start. Soon, only a few students without classes were left wandering around. I sat on a bench near the vending machine, taking a sip of water. A small, thin girl came up next to me and started taking numerous bottles of water from the machine, not stopping even when her hands were overflowing. I caught a bottle that fell from her arms. Seeing her still trying to grab more, I couldn't help but say, "Do you have a bag? Or maybe you could come back for the rest later." The girl took the bottle from me and thanked me nervously. "Thank you, but it's okay. I can manage." But as soon as she said that, 2 more bottles slipped from her grasp. I picked them up for her. Thinking that Chloe hadn't arrived yet, I asked, "Where are you headed? I can help you carry some of these." The girl shook her head nervously. I didn't insist. I helped her find a bag for the water, and just then, Chloe called. I walked away, on the phone, not noticing the pleading gaze that followed me from behind. Chloe had also come to class empty-handed. We walked towards the school cafeteria, unburdened. I thought for a moment and mentioned the strange encounter. She gave me a really weird feeling. Chloe considered it. She was carrying all that water and no one helped her. Do you think she's being bullied? Something flashed in my mind, and I stopped in my tracks. In my past life, I rarely came to campus, but after the pool incident, I was afraid Victoria would come after me because of Leo, so I hid out at school for a while. It was during that time that someone jumped from a building on campus. I was leaning on a balcony railing when the person fell from the roof, landing right in front of me. The gruesome scene terrified me so much that I forgot about being afraid of Victoria and went back to the Ashford mansion for a long time. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that person jumping. I felt so insecure that I clung to Victoria for a long time. Victoria didn't know what to do with me and even found a therapist to help me. During that period, my nightmares were filled with images of that girl's face, her eyes wide open in death. But it's been so long, and my memory has never been great, so I only have a vague impression of her. But that girl was so timid, she really did look like someone who was being bullied. I stopped walking, lost in thought. Chloe pulled me aside just as I was about to be bumped into. I snapped back to reality and stared blankly at Chloe, making her skin crawl. "What's wrong with you? Did class turn your brain to mush?" I thought for a moment and said, "I feel like something's not right. Come back with me and let's check it out." Chloe glanced at the nearby cafeteria, then at me, clearly not in a good state, and sighed in resignation. "All right, let's go." We retraced our steps and soon arrived at the spot where I had met the girl, but she was gone. I led Chloe around the academic building, specifically checking secluded spots without security cameras. In the end, Chloe contacted the security office and found out which direction the girl had gone. We headed towards the deserted science building. Our university wasn't a tech school, so the science building was mostly for show and had few cameras. As we approached, we could hear girls laughing from upstairs. We hurried up to the 2nd floor. The sound was coming from a bathroom in the corner. Inside, we could hear a girl's suppressed sobs, which were quickly drowned out by sharp laughter. I kicked the locked door open, then immediately turned around, afraid of what I might see. When the door flew open, the first thing Chloe saw was a partially clothed girl being straddled and slapped by another. The door being kicked in silenced the noisy bathroom for a moment. "TSK, who is it, making such a racket? You're paying for that door, you know?" The people inside didn't notice me with my back turned. Only Chloe standing in the doorway with a cold expression, blocking the light from outside. Isabella, pinned to the floor with tears streaming down her face, saw the boy who had helped her at the vending machine break down the door, and a flicker of hope ignited in her desolate eyes. The other girls, however, only saw a meddler who was about to be taught a lesson. I didn't bother with them. Before they could react, I kicked the girl who was on top of Isabella, then pulled Isabella up from the floor. I took off my jacket and draped it over her, pulling her behind me. In a flash, one of the girls in the bathroom reached out to drag me inside. I dodged back in disgust, ripped the metal lock off the stall door, and threw it at the girl who seemed to be the leader. Thankfully, my aim had improved from throwing things at Victoria in the study a few days ago, and it hit her right on the forehead. A scream echoed through the bathroom. I grabbed a nearby mop and propped it on the floor. I saw them all glaring at me angrily, but some hesitated when they saw blood. I said casually, "I'll pay for the door. In fact, I could tear down this entire building today, and no one would dare ask me to pay for it." Understand. The person I had hit seemed to be the leader of the group. Clutching her bleeding forehead, she said furiously, "Drag him in here. Teach him a lesson." At her command, the others rushed towards me, but I pushed them back with the mop. But the mop was heavy, and I struggled to swing it at their faces one by one. When I ran out of strength, I yelled, "Chloe, move!" Chloe dropped the mop she was holding and stepped back. I aimed the hose I had connected from outside at the people in the bathroom, spraying them all with water. Chloe leaned against the wall, catching her breath. She saw that the people inside, having been hit with a mop and soaked with water, had no fight left in them, so she turned off the hose. After catching my breath, I stood before them, exuding an intimidating aura, and took out my phone to record. "What department and year are you all in? Bullying a fellow student in broad daylight? Who gave you the nerve?" The group, now soaked to the bone, still wanted to drag me into the bathroom. I stepped back. "Take a good look at my face. Do I look like someone you can afford to mess with?" Ethan Ashford, the cold, newly returned young master. My reputation should have spread throughout the university by now, especially since the Ashford family had funded so many new buildings and invested heavily in education here. I was surprised they hadn't recognized me yet. One of them had heard me shout, "Chloe," and seemed to vaguely recognize me. She asked in a trembling voice, "Are you, Ash?" "I'm Ethan Ashford. Has none of you heard of me?" Their families only owned small companies, so they'd never had the chance to meet me or Chloe, and since I was rarely on campus, they hadn't recognized me. Now, hearing my name, they were all stunned. The group of girls helped each other to their feet, their clothes soaked through. A gust of wind made them all shiver. The spots where the mop had hit them were filthy. The leader, the one with the bleeding forehead, was the first to recover. Her face paled, and she lowered her head. "We're sorry we didn't recognize you, Mr. Ashford, but we weren't bullying her. We were just playing with Isabella." I glanced back at Isabella. The small girl was huddled in the corner, wrapped in my jacket. I raised an eyebrow. "You guys play pretty rough, huh? You even ripped her clothes." They all mumbled, not saying a word. I looked at the trembling Isabella and, still furious, kicked the leader. "Ah!" The girl who fell to the ground didn't dare fight back, only letting out a surprised cry. I dusted off my hands and looked down at her. "You know who I am now. What's your name?" The girl with her head down gritted her teeth and said hatefully, "Danielle Liu." I nodded. "All right, I'll remember that. See you around." I waved, then turned to help Isabella up and left with Chloe. We took Isabella straight to the hospital. Her injuries were all minor and hidden under her clothes. The only visible marks on her face were a few scratches from their nails. Chloe stayed by Isabella's side, looking at the bruises on her body. When the doctor said the official assessment was minor injuries, she was furious. It seemed that group had a lot of experience with bullying. After the doctor treated her injuries and left, I asked in a gentle voice, "Why were they bullying you?" Hearing my voice, Isabella's tears started to fall, one by one. Her sobs were small and quiet, just like her. I fumbled for tissues to wipe her tears. I'm not good at comforting people and didn't know what to say, so I just gently patted her back. "It's okay now," I said, comforting her awkwardly. Isabella cried softly for a while before answering my question in a quiet voice. "My mother is a housekeeper for the Liu family. They said a housekeeper's child is destined to serve others too. At first, they just made me run errands for them, but then, I don't know why, they started to bully me." Isabella looked up at me, tears still streaming from her eyes. "I don't know why they bully me. Is it because I'm unlikable?" I wiped the tears from her face with a tissue and said softly, "You're not unlikable. They are. Don't worry, I won't let them bully you anymore." Isabella's tears flowed even faster. She sobbed and kept repeating, "Thank you." I gently patted her shoulder, helping her calm down. Because of this incident, we both took the afternoon off from class. I walked Isabella back to her dorm room while Chloe waited for me downstairs. As Isabella opened the door, something flew out from inside, grazing her cheek before hitting the floor. Laughter and roughhousing could be heard from within the room. "Zoe, Are you even trying? You missed. My bad. Tisk. It's this bitch's fault for not standing closer. Ha 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 ha. Make her come inside. I hadn't expected her roommates to bully her too. I was just trying to be nice and walk her to her door, wanting to see it through to the end. And now I had stumbled upon this. Isabella hadn't expected anyone to be in the room either, and she stood there in a panic. I pulled Isabella back out into the hallway and stood in the doorway myself, a sarcastic look on my face. Well, what a surprise. This school is full of hidden talents. Such impressive aim. The room went silent for a moment. While the girls from earlier today were from a different department and might not have recognized me, this dormitory was for students in my department. The 3 girls inside saw me and stood up, laughing nervously. Mr. Ashford, what a joker you are. I walked towards them and tilted my head slightly. Who's joking with you? I scanned the room. 3 neat beds and a 4th one that was soaking wet, its desk a complete mess. I raised my phone and took a picture. One of them instinctively tried to grab my phone, and I slapped her across the face. I didn't hold back. The force of the blow made my own palm tingle. A gasp went through the room as the girl's face quickly turned red and swollen. I shook my hand and frowned slightly. You've got a lot of nerve, trying to snatch my phone. The girls were furious but didn't dare say anything. I gave them a stern warning, then ordered them to do to their own beds what they had done to Isabella's. I didn't stop until there wasn't a single clean set of bedding left in the room. Isabella obviously couldn't stay there, so I took her with me, informing the dorm supervisor on the way out. I sent a message to the driver, and the Ashford car was waiting for us downstairs. We asked Isabella what she wanted to do. Since she didn't want to go home in her disheveled state, we took her back to my new apartment. The driver dropped us off and reported back to his boss. Miss Victoria, I just dropped off Mr. Ethan and Miss Chloe with another young lady at their home. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, but ultimately, nothing was said. I found a clean set of clothes for Isabella and told her to take a shower, while Chloe and I stayed in the living room, trying to process the day's events. I couldn't believe so many people were bullying her. She told me she had tried to fight back, but then her mother was given a hard time at the Liu household. She said her family couldn't afford to lose that job. Chloe was also deeply affected. Seeing such a nice girl being bullied like this, unable to fight back, for who knows how long, was hard to stomach. She took out her phone and called the university president, explaining what had happened, but the person on the other end just hemmed and hawed. Chloe said impatiently, "What's your position on this? Are you going to do something or not?" The president's troubled voice came through the phone. "Miss Ashford, you should check online. There's a story about bullying at our university that's gone public. Only the main subject is your cousin." Chloe's expression changed. She had just hung up when another call came in. "Chloe, there's a trending video right now. A few girls are claiming the young master bullied them. What's going on?" Before Chloe could answer, I had already opened my phone. A video posted half an hour ago was now trending. A group of soaking wet girls were crying and accusing, "Ethan Ashford from NYU is using his family's status to bully us regular students." They showed off the wound on one of their foreheads, trembling as they spoke. "Our parents worked hard to raise us, but Mr. Ashford said he could afford to pay even if he beat us to death. We don't need his money, but we don't know what we did to offend him to be treated like this. We know we were wrong. We'll never cross the Ashford family again. We just beg him to leave us alone." "Chloe." The voice on the phone was still pressing, asking what had happened. Chloe and I stared at the faces of the girls in the video, our expressions grim. Chloe hung up. It was only then that we, 2 geniuses, realized we had no proof that they had been bullying Isabella. The comments under the video were a cesspool, all of them cursing me out. My sister, Olivia Vaughn, called. I explained the situation to her, and Olivia gave me clear, logical instructions. I suddenly felt like I had a backbone again. I obediently recounted the day's events and sent her the 2 videos I had taken, which left Olivia silent for a moment. Meanwhile, Chloe's call with Victoria was ending. The first thing Victoria had asked was whether I had actually bullied those girls. Chloe had retorted angrily, "He's not that kind of person. Victoria, Ethan is your brother. Don't you know whether he would abuse his power for no reason?" Chloe conveniently forgot about the times I had bullied Leo. Victoria had to calm Chloe down first, then asked for the details of the afternoon's events and sent people to investigate for evidence of the girls in the video being bullies. I had just put my phone down when Isabella came out of the shower. Her phone had been broken long ago, so she had no idea about the storm brewing online. For once, I used my brain and realized that it wouldn't help if Isabella knew. People would probably just say she was also a victim of my bullying, too scared to tell the truth and forced to lie under my pressure. I ignored Chloe's questioning gaze and told Isabella to get some rest. The online abuse didn't really bother me yet. I glanced at it once and then turned off my phone. Chloe was left to defend me online, so I took her phone away too. I hadn't heard who Chloe was talking to, so I asked casually. Chloe paused and said, Victoria also believes you didn't bully anyone. She's looking for evidence for you right now. I could see right through her lie but just smiled indifferently, turned off her phone too, and told her to go to bed. I went back to my own room to shower and rest. But before I did, I got a call from Mr. Vaughn. I put on a cheerful voice and said affectionately, Dad. The mood on the other end was not so light. Mr. and Mrs. Vaughn knew I wasn't a bully and were worried the negative comments would hurt me, so they called to comfort me. I said nonchalantly, I know, Olivia is handling it for me, so what do I have to be afraid of? Don't worry, Mom and Dad. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm gonna sleep right now. Everything will probably be resolved by the time I wake up. My carefree attitude seemed to reassure Mr. and Mrs. Vaughn, and they told me to get some rest before hanging up. After my shower, I lay in bed and, after some thought, had someone look into whether there was any evidence of Danielle Liu's group bullying others. The feedback I got was that Danielle's actions were never overt. She mostly just made Isabella run errands for her. Meanwhile, netizens were furiously cursing Ethan Ashford, and even the Board of Education had gone to the university to inquire about the situation. The campus was buzzing with gossip, but I, the person at the center of it all, slept soundly through the night. I slept peacefully, but some people didn't sleep at all. The light in the Ashford study stayed on all night, and in the room next to mine, Chloe couldn't sleep either. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my phone ringing. I fished it out and saw it was an unknown number. I hesitated. Had people online already doxed me and found my number? But I answered it anyway. A calm male voice was on the other end. Hello, Mr. Ashford. My name is Noah. I felt an inexplicable sense of relief. It wasn't someone who had doxed me. My voice was still hoarse from sleep. Hello, Mr. Fong. How can I help you? I had heard of Noah before. He was in the same department as me. I was studying broadcasting and Noah was studying acting. Before I came to NYU, Noah was considered the most handsome guy in our department. After I arrived, many people said I had stolen that title from him. But we had only ever passed each other in the hallways and had never formally spoken. On the other end, Noah was silent for a moment after hearing my sleepy voice, probably surprised that I could sleep so soundly when the entire internet was cursing me out. Then he got to the point. I have a video of the girls from that online video bullying another student, but I'd like to make a deal with you. My eyes lit up. What do you want? Noah seemed surprised by my directness. He paused for a moment before saying, I want to sign with your sister's entertainment company. Signing with my own sister's company was a small matter for me, so I readily agreed. Noah was stunned that it was that easy. I didn't think much of it. Maybe he was a fan of one of the stars at my family's company. It didn't matter to me. Noah and I exchanged contact information, and he sent me the video as promised. Now that I knew the tables would turn, I wasn't in a hurry. I had grown up around Olivia and had watched her team handle entertainment industry crises. They always let things escalate before revealing the truth. That way, the people who jumped on the bandwagon would feel guilty, and the victims could gain more followers. After fermenting overnight, the online video had gained massive traction. I was famous now, and along with my name came my reputation for being arrogant and domineering. Stories ranged from me riding another rich kid like a horse in Miami when I was 7, to me forcing a girl to marry me when I was 9. Looking at all this, I felt a bit helpless. I knew there was a professional PR team handling it, and my sister was a master at manipulating public opinion. She would never let anything truly damaging to my reputation get out. Even the stories about me bullying Leo after coming to New York were nowhere to be seen. But the further I scrolled, the more of my dark history I saw, and I couldn't resist sending the video to Olivia. The video wasn't from yesterday, but the victim was still Isabella, and the setting was the school gym. Danielle and her group were throwing all kinds of balls at Isabella, who had nowhere to hide and could only crouch on the ground and take the hits. In the end, they even called over some boys to grope her, and soon Isabella's clothes were in tatters. I couldn't watch anymore. Thankfully, the video was already pixelated, so I didn't have to edit it myself. I just forwarded it. I also took the opportunity to ask my dear sister how she was managing the public opinion and why all my old dirt was being dug up. Sis, what's this about me forcing someone to marry me? I don't even remember that. Olivia's reply came so quickly that I forgot about the time difference between us. All the information being released has been vetted by me. It's not like you have a lot of positive news to work with. As for the girl you supposedly forced to marry you, she caused me a bit of trouble recently. Ethan, just consider it helping your sister get even. I looked at my phone again, watching my reputation crumble online. Everything from my childhood performance videos to public appearances and my Twitter account had been dug up. I checked my Twitter on a burner account. The comments were a sea of insults. I couldn't log into my main account, as it was being managed by Olivia's PR team, probably because they were afraid I'd be hurt by the direct attacks. But I was used to not caring, and having been through a near-death experience, it didn't faze me. I didn't even bother to ask when Olivia planned to clear my name. I told Olivia about Noah, and she said she would take care of it, so I didn't worry about it anymore. I drifted off to sleep again. This time I fell back into a dream. I was leaning against the railing of a hallway in the academic building. This time, no one fell from the roof in front of me. Instead, a very sweet-looking girl handed me a bottle of water. I took it, looking at her in confusion. The girl smiled shyly and thanked me sincerely. "Thank you." Before I could say anything, I was woken up by a knock on the door. I lethargically went to open it and found Chloe standing outside, looking just as tired as I felt. "Breakfast is ready." Isabella made it. I only looked up when I heard Isabella's name, then asked, confused, "Where did we get groceries from?" Chloe stepped aside, revealing a few people behind her. The butler came with a housekeeper and groceries. My gaze fell on the butler and housekeeper setting the table with Isabella in the living room. I turned and went back to my room to wash up. By the time I came out, Chloe was already eating in the dining room. I sat down at the table and invited Isabella to join us. Isabella seemed a bit reserved when she saw me, smiling shyly, just like the girl in my dream. I smiled back. "Go ahead and eat. Thank you for making such a big breakfast today." Isabella finally sat down. "Mr. Ashford, you helped me. I don't know what I can do for you. This is just a small thing." The butler had been standing nearby for a while. Seeing that I had no intention of acknowledging him, he finally spoke up. "Young master, the situation online hasn't been resolved yet. Perhaps it would be best for you and the young miss to return to the Ashford mansion for now. It would be safer there." I didn't even look up. "What's unsafe?" "The Ashford mansion is the unsafe place for me." I was referring to the brawl with Victoria in the study. The butler must have been following Victoria's orders, trying to persuade us to go back. I didn't get it. She should be happy that I left. No one would be bullying Leo anymore. What was this all about? The butler continued to persuade me. "Please don't say that, young master. The young miss is just worried. The internet can be a double-edged sword. It could harm you at any time. If you come home, she'll be able to rest easy." I scoffed. "Does she think I started this whole mess, and now she wants to play the big sister and control me?" Chloe quietly interjected, "Victoria doesn't think you bullied anyone." I looked up at her, and Chloe fell silent. Isabella was still looking confused. She asked cautiously, "What's going on?" "Online. It's nothing." I cut the butler off after just 2 words. Isabella felt a strange sense of unease. Chloe couldn't hold it in any longer and said, "You can't protect her like this. She's going to find out sooner or later. You can't just keep her from her phone and from going home forever, can you? Her family will be worried." I kept my head down, fiddling with my chopsticks, and didn't say a word. Chloe gestured for the butler to continue. The butler recounted the online events, and Isabella finally understood why Chloe had been acting so strangely the night before. Her eyes turned red with anxiety. "I can testify for Mr. Ashford. They're slandering you." I reassured her, "Don't worry. We found a video of them bullying someone. My sister will take care of it." Chloe looked up. "What video? When is Victoria going to take care of it?" I told her about my conversation with Noah that morning, emphasizing at the end, "My sister, Olivia Vaughn." Chloe glanced at the butler standing nearby and sighed internally for Victoria. After calming Isabella down, I asked if she wanted to go home and talk to her mother. Her father had passed away early, and her mother supported her education by working as a housekeeper for the Liu family. She never told her mother about the bullying, but if this story got out, her mother would surely lose her job. Chloe had already thought of this and had the butler give Isabella a business card, offering to find her mother a new job. Isabella was so moved she said she would do anything for us. I stopped her from bowing repeatedly. "It's okay. You should have talked to your mother about this from the beginning. I'm sure she would be heartbroken to know how much you've been suffering." The butler arranged for someone to take Isabella home but remained here himself. I deliberately ignored the man standing beside me, scrolling through my phone while I ate breakfast. My identity had been exposed. I wondered if it would affect the Vaughn Corporation stock prices. I opened TikTok. It was a mess. 6 out of 10 videos were about anti-bullying campaigns, and I was still the main character. I didn't ask Olivia when she planned to clear my name. I knew I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but I was self-aware enough to know that my sister would never do anything to harm me, so I trusted her completely. Just as I was getting bored and about to turn off my phone, a new trending video popped up on my feed. I recognized the people in it and raised an eyebrow. Another little fish had taken the bait. The people in the video were the ones who had been bullying Isabella in her dorm room the night before. They were probably intimidated by my background and had been waiting on the sidelines since Danielle and her friends posted their video. Seeing that neither the Vaughn nor the Ashford family had made a statement yet, they decided to join the chorus, adding their own spin to the story of me soaking their beds, painting themselves as innocent victims who were constantly tormented by me. My name was now firmly associated with the word bully and was trending at number 1. The Vaughn Corporation's PR team still hadn't made a move. After breakfast, I received a message from Olivia, telling me to rest at home and stay off my phone. I didn't think much of it. After eating, I went back to my room and curled up in bed. The internet was full of people cursing me out. I scrolled for a bit, got bored, and then just lay there, staring at the ceiling. At this time in my past life, after witnessing Isabella's suicide, I was in a terrible mental state, a nervous wreck, insecure, and desperate for Victoria's attention. And in this life, I had saved Isabella by a twist of fate, only to become the poster child for campus bullying online. I suddenly remembered that in the novel, because of my nervous breakdown, Victoria had shown rare patience with me, arranging a therapist and spending more time with me every day. During that time, she had neglected Leo, making him feel like a mere substitute, unworthy of his sister's love. It was also during that period that Leo's relationship with his original fiancée, Jocelyn, progressed rapidly. When Victoria finally turned her attention back, she found her precious little brother had been stolen away, which cast a pall over the Ashford household for a while. After I slowly recovered, I discovered that Leo and the woman who was supposed to be my fiancée were getting engaged. I then proceeded to humiliate Leo at several major events, only to be put in my place by Victoria and Jocelyn. So now, with me being targeted by this online mob, and the butler saying Victoria wants me to come back to the mansion, is this another way of forcing the plot, creating a brief moment of warmth between me and Victoria before I go after Leo again? My head ached from thinking about it. I just wanted to stay as far away from the original plot as possible, but it felt like some invisible force was pushing everything to align with the story. If this continued, would I ultimately be pushed towards my predetermined end? Would I still die? I took a deep breath. Hearing the voices of the butler and Chloe outside my door only made me feel more frustrated. I couldn't sleep, the internet was a minefield, and I couldn't go out. I scrolled through my contacts and stopped on Noah's name, which I had just added this morning. Thinking of the video, I typed out a message. "How did you get that video?" A reply came back shortly after. It was for a class project, a short film. We were shooting a scene in the gym and left a camera behind. It was still recording, so it captured everything by accident. I thought to myself, "Are you kidding me?" As if sensing my disbelief, Noah sent another clip from the camera. "I found it last night while pulling an all-nighter for an assignment." I silently changed the subject and asked my own question, "Why are you so set on signing with my sister's company? Besides your sister, no one else dares to sign me. The Fong family forbids me from entering the entertainment industry. You didn't know that." Back then, my world revolved around Victoria, and I rarely paid attention to outside matters, so of course I didn't know. I had thought maybe Noah had a crush on one of the artists at my sister's company. "Then why did you still study acting?" It was the result of a long fight. I just said, "Oh," and didn't know what else to type, just staring at my phone. Seeing that I had gone silent, Noah asked, "Didn't I send you the video? Why haven't you cleared your name yet?" I typed back, "My sister has her own plans." I had killed the conversation and didn't know what else to do, so my fingers subconsciously opened TikTok again. I was trending like crazy, the internet was full of hate, and I couldn't go out. I scrolled through my contacts again, my thumb stopping on Noah's name. The Vaughn family would, of course, defend me unconditionally. My sister didn't care if I affected the family's stock prices. But how could the Ashford family just stand by and watch their corporate reputation be tarnished by me? While I was still wondering why the Ashfords were so passive, Victoria had just gotten off the phone with Olivia. Victoria, perhaps feeling guilty after hitting me with the cane, had been working tirelessly behind the scenes. From not stopping me from moving out to me being targeted online, she had sent people to find evidence for me overnight. In the process, her team ran into another group of people, the Vaughn's people. The two parties found different pieces of evidence. The Ashford approach was simple and direct. Victoria's team figured that bullies often like to keep evidence of their actions on their phones, so they covertly acquired Danielle and her friends' phones and extracted the proof of their bullying. The Vaughn investigation focused on the victims at the school. They also pressured the bribed head of security to hand over victim testimonies and campus surveillance footage. Combined with the video from Noah, clearing my name would be easy. Victoria wanted to clear my name immediately, but Olivia intended to muddy the waters first to see who else would reveal their malicious intentions. Being abroad, she didn't know if anyone in New York was targeting her precious little brother, so she decided to use this opportunity to draw them all out. And sure enough, another night of escalation brought a few more small fish to the surface. The two sisters agreed to wait and see who else would try to kick me while I was down. By the evening of the second day, exactly 24 hours after the first video accusing me was posted, Olivia had identified numerous opportunists, as well as other corporations that were trying to use the scandal to hurt both the Vaughn and Ashford families. The legal teams of both the Vaughn and Ashford families sued Danielle and the others for defamation. At the same time, the first piece of counter-evidence was released, Isabella's account of what really happened that day. Olivia had asked Isabella if she was willing to testify as a victim to clear my name, and Isabella had agreed without hesitation. In a clarification video recorded with her mother by her side, she stated that I had only gotten into a conflict with Danielle and her friends because I was rescuing her. She also described how Danielle and others at the school had isolated and bullied her for 4 years. Ever since her mother started working for the Liu family, these tormentors had subjected her to constant violence and humiliation, even arranging for her to be assaulted on several occasions. They had threatened her with her mother's job, warning her not to tell anyone or ask for help. Following her testimony was the video provided by Noah, showing everyone in the gym kicking and punching the frail girl, their bullying tactics knowing no bounds. But Isabella was far from their only victim. More and more people came forward to testify that Danielle and her group had formed a clique at school, dragging anyone they didn't like to secluded spots to beat them up, all while pretending to be on good terms with them publicly. More and more bullying videos surfaced, some from a third-person perspective, some from a first-person one. The victims were mostly students from ordinary families, both boys and girls, and the bullies were not limited to Danielle's group. The Ashford family's lawyers announced they would represent the victims pro bono. NYU expelled the bullies. Those with some family connections immediately went to the Ashford mansion with apology gifts. The Ashford butler was still with me, Victoria was at her office, so only Leo was at the mansion. He was forced to face the crowd of people begging for mercy. He had already seen the full story online. From the moment the first video came out, he knew I couldn't have been the one bullying them. The reason was simple. My methods weren't exactly sophisticated, but they weren't this pathetic either. Just getting someone's clothes wet and giving them a small cut on the forehead wasn't my style. Besides, this young master's malice had only ever been directed at him. He had never seen me bully anyone else. And now that I wasn't even bullying him anymore, I must have truly changed. He faced the people pleading with him to ask the Ashford family for leniency, his heart calm. Uncles, my sister and brother aren't home. I can't make any decisions. Besides, instead of wasting your time here, you should go apologize to the victims or find a good lawyer. There's nothing I can do. Leo politely urged them to leave. After pleading for so long to no avail, seeing that Leo was unmoved, they finally left to try other avenues. Only then did Leo continue to browse the news online. As one explosive revelation after another came out, the online vitriol against me vanished completely, replaced by a wave of guilt. Those damn bullies actually twisted the truth. Who would have thought the young master, who was actually the one who saved someone, would be slandered like this? Come to think of it, the young master didn't say a word from beginning to end. I wonder if the online mob has traumatized him. He's only a 19-year-old college student. How could he have imagined that he would save someone only to be branded a bully and hunted down by everyone moments later? I feel so bad for the young master. I'm so sorry, Mr. Ashford. I scrolled through the uniform apology comments under my Twitter posts, but I didn't feel happy. I hadn't been harmed. The ones who had suffered irreversible trauma were the ones who had been bullied. I watched Isabella's clarification video. I never knew she had been bullied for so many years, and even assaulted. If I hadn't run into her that day, she might not have been able to hold on for much longer and might have really jumped from that rooftop. But what I hadn't expected even more was that there were so many victims at school, right under my nose, and so many people knew but were too afraid to speak up. This undoubtedly plunged the victims into a cycle of self-loathing, their pain amplified by the cold indifference of those around them. My phone kept vibrating with incoming messages. Many people were sending their condolences, but I didn't reply to any of them. These people hadn't said a single word for me when I was in the thick of it. It wasn't until a message from Noah came through that I finally tapped on it. Thank you. I'm about to sign with Vaughn Entertainment. This time, my parents can't stop me. I typed back, no problem. You helped me a lot too. I saw the series of videos clearing your name. Even without my clip, you would have been exonerated. Your sister handled it very well. I finally smiled. My sister is amazing. Speak of the devil. The next message was from Olivia. Olivia said that this incident had helped her identify many people who held ill will towards me, and she would take care of them all. I'm sorry, Ethan. You had to go through a lot this time. I immediately called her, and she picked up almost instantly. It's fine. I wasn't wronged at all. Thanks for helping me, sis. As long as you're okay. If you're feeling down about anything, talk to me or your sister Victoria. If you're really not feeling well, consider seeing a therapist. Olivia's slightly weary voice came through the phone, and I realized it was probably nighttime where she was. But before I could feel guilty, I heard Victoria's name. I frowned. What does Victoria have to do with this? Olivia rubbed her temples. Victoria was looking for evidence for you all night and ran into my people along the way. She's the one who found those first-person videos online. I was silent. Olivia sensed it immediately. Are you two not getting along? I forced a smile into my voice to make it sound lighter. No, of course not. She's my sister, after all. Let's not talk about her. I don't want you to get jealous. Olivia suppressed her doubts and went along with the change of subject. That boy you mentioned who helped you, I'll have someone sign him right away. It only then occurred to me. The Fong family doesn't want him in the entertainment industry. Will we be targeted for signing him? Olivia laughed. No one can target us. They don't have that kind of power yet. Don't worry. I put down my phone and urged Olivia to get some rest. We hung up. I then called to check on Isabella. She sounded like she was doing well. She said her mother had already quit her job at the Liu household and would be staying home with her for a while before starting a new job at the Ashford mansion, which the butler had arranged. Mr. Ashford, if my mother is working at the Ashford mansion, does that mean I can see you if I visit her? Isabella's voice was filled with unconcealed joy. I paused for a moment. If you want to see me, you can come to the gardens. You're always welcome. The Gardens was the name of my current apartment complex. Isabella heard my avoidance of the Ashford mansion, but was thrilled that I was inviting her to my own home. She thanked me profusely for saving her. I smiled back. You were brave enough to speak out and bring your abusers to justice. It wasn't just me who saved you. You also saved yourself. After the storm subsided, I was finally allowed to go out again. The Ashford butler also left the Gardens and returned to the mansion. When I went back to campus, my fame had grown once more, but for a change, it wasn't because of negative press. From the moment I stepped onto campus, students who had been bullied before had already given me 3 breakfasts, 5 bottles of milk, and 2 bottles of water. My hands were so full I could barely carry everything. Just then, a familiar figure walked towards me. I squinted and finally recognized Noah. I quickly handed him one of the breakfasts. Here, have you eaten? Even if you have another. I gave the other one to Chloe. The 3 of us happened to be walking down the same quiet corridor. With fewer people around and no one staring at me, I breathed a sigh of relief. Noah had barely run into me before I shoved breakfast into his hands. He silently took a bite of the sandwich. The 3 of us walked together until we reached a fork in the path. Chloe went her separate way, while Noah and I were headed to the same building. After finishing his sandwich, Noah was finally able to speak. You're not at all like the rumors say. I had never heard the rumors about myself and was curious. What kind of rumors? Noah thought for a moment. They say you're arrogant and domineering, that you bullied the adopted son of the Ashford family. They also say you were a big shot in Miami, that no one dared to cross you. I was silent. Wasn't that me? The rumors were right. Noah looked at me, his eyes filled with a clear, innocent confusion. If I had a cold expression, I might look intimidating, but the open look on my face made it hard for him to imagine me bullying anyone. Seeing Noah's disbelief, I frowned, trying to salvage my domineering image. I really did bully people. Noah's reply was less than convincing. Okay, you bullied people. His dismissive tone annoyed me, but I didn't say anything more. We parted ways in the hallway. I found my classroom, sat down in the back, and suddenly remembered what I had forgotten. Great, I had forgotten my textbook again. I drank the milk someone had given me earlier. Feeling full and sleepy, I rested my head on the desk and fell asleep. The usually strict professor stood at the podium, saw the student who had just survived an online mob, and for once, didn't call on him to wake up. I slept soundly to the sound of the professor's lecture. This time back at school, besides meeting a lot of people who admired me, the campus had undergone a major overhaul. Security cameras were everywhere, and bullying had been virtually eliminated. I didn't pay attention to the aftermath. I couldn't be bothered with what happened to the bullies. After class in the afternoon, I parted ways with Chloe and went to the Ashford's private clinic. Mrs. Ashford hadn't had another episode since the rooftop incident. She spent her days quietly with my old teddy bear. Mr. and Mrs. Ashford's marriage was a business arrangement. After their son was kidnapped and disappeared, and Mrs. Ashford developed mental health issues, Mr. Ashford rarely visited her. The doctor used to report Mrs. Ashford's daily condition to Victoria, but after my intense reaction that day, Victoria instructed the doctor to send me a copy of the report as well. So, I decided to spend more time in this life with the mother who had spent half her life thinking of me. After all, I didn't know when I might die, and then I wouldn't be able to see her at all. I sat with Mrs. Ashford on a rocking chair in the clinic's garden. The chair rocked gently, the last rays of the setting sun reflecting in my eyes. Mrs. Ashford sat beside me, my reflection in her eyes. I suddenly turned to her and smiled. Mom, am I handsome? Mrs. Ashford nodded, her gaze fixed on me. No wonder you can't stop looking at me then. Mrs. Ashford looked at the face that so closely resembled her own, yet unlike her, was not shrouded in gloom. It was a face that smiled with such flamboyance, as if no shadow could ever touch it, and she found herself smiling along with me. I tilted my head and rested it gently on Mrs. Ashford's shoulder. Her arm came around me, and in the twilight, mother and son shared a moment of perfect tranquility. Victoria stood silently behind them, taking in the scene. Ever since I disappeared, her mother had first lost her mind, and though treatment had helped, she spent most of her time in a numb, dazed state, lost in her own world. Victoria had rarely seen her so peaceful and gentle, nor had she often seen me so genuinely calm, not putting on an act of obedience, just quietly watching the sunset. So, what exactly had happened to change my personality so drastically? To make me stop obsessing over what Leo had taken from me and stop caring about the Ashford family altogether? She had investigated my behavior, and it was no different from before. She had even ruled out the possibility of me being possessed. The only suspicious event was the day I was pushed into the pool by Jocelyn and remained unconscious in the hospital for 3 days. When I woke up, I didn't even go home, instead dragging Chloe out for a night of drinking. Could falling into the water have made me see everything clearly? Did I feel like I couldn't compete with Leo, so I just gave up? But she was my sister. Victoria's thoughts were interrupted as I started leading Mrs. Ashford back inside. The evening wind was picking up. I took my mother indoors, and when I turned around, I saw Victoria with a dark expression, wondering what negative thoughts she was having about me. I narrowed my eyes at her and tried to guide my mother past her. But to my surprise, my mother stopped me right in front of Victoria. Victoria looked at our mother, a soft smile gracing her lips. Mrs. Ashford took Victoria's hand with her free one and smiled gently. "Victoria, you should smile more, so Ethan won't be afraid of you." My face fell. "Mom, I'm not afraid of her." Victoria ignored my disgruntled look and played along for our mother's sake, smiling. "I know, Mom." Mrs. Ashford held one of her children's hands in each of hers, and the three of us walked inside. For once, Victoria and I were quiet together, simply enjoying the peaceful moment with our mother. As evening fell, I chatted happily with my mother in her room, and even Victoria felt a rare sense of lightness in her heart. All those years when her brother was missing, she had to constantly worry about her mother's condition. When he was found, she couldn't get the two boys in the house to coexist peacefully. This scene was something she had dreamed of. I noticed Victoria staring and shifted uncomfortably, not wanting her to look at me. I glanced at the time. It was time for me to leave. Mrs. Ashford knew I had to go and reluctantly stroked my hand. I squeezed her hand back. "Mom, I'll come see you again soon." Mrs. Ashford walked us to the door, insisting on watching us leave. Resigned, I had no choice but to walk out side by side with Victoria. The moment we were out of my mother's sight, I quickened my pace towards where the driver was parked. The evening breeze blew, and the soft spot my mother had coaxed out of me hardened once more. My tolerance for the Ashford family was now reserved almost exclusively for my mother. As for Victoria, that rare moment of peace we'd shared was now left behind me, along with her gaze. I had just reached the clinic's entrance when my phone suddenly buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Ashford, be careful when you go out lately. Someone's watching you." Signed, Connor Vaughn. I stopped in my tracks. Connor Vaughn? I stared at the name Vaughn for a few seconds, then suddenly remembered that night Chloe and I drank ourselves into oblivion. The hotel attendant had brought clothes and honey water, saying the manager, a Mr. Vaughn, had ordered it. I dialed the number immediately. He answered quickly, his voice steady. "Mr. Ashford." I narrowed my eyes. "The hotel manager? That's me. Who are you?" He paused for a moment before replying, "A distant relative of the Vaughn family. By generation, you should call me Connor. Mr. and Mrs. Vaughn were worried about you being in New York alone, so they asked me to keep an eye on you." My heart eased slightly, then I grew annoyed. "Then why are you only showing up now? Before, you had such a princely temper. Anyone who got close was asking for trouble." Connor's tone actually held a hint of amusement. "Besides, Mr. Vaughn said not to disturb you unless you asked for help, so as not to hurt your pride." I was speechless. That sounded exactly like something my dad would say. I didn't want to argue with him and got straight to the point. "What does the text mean?" Connor's voice grew serious. "The things that have been happening to you lately are too coincidental. The incident at the clinic on the day you were going to the airport, the pacing of the online mob campaign, and the people who were tracking your schedule a few days ago, none of it seems random. I traced the marketing company and found a connection to the Dalton family. Julian Dalton." My eyes turned cold. "And," Connor paused, "the Daltons have been in close contact with a member of a branch of the Ashford family recently. You should be familiar with him." A completely absurd, yet crystal-clear thought suddenly popped into my head. I had always thought that the force compelling me to act out the plot was something mystical, an irresistible power of this fictional world. But looking back now, every time I tried to pull away, every time I was provoked, every time my relationship with the Ashfords worsened, it seemed like someone was right there, adding fuel to the fire. It wasn't fate, it was a person. I asked softly, "Who?" Connor gave me a name. I stood frozen for a long moment. He was talking about Chloe's father, the man everyone called Uncle, but who was actually the second in line in the main branch of the Ashford family, Marcus Ashford. On the way back, I didn't say a word. The driver glanced at me several times in the rearview mirror, probably thinking I was plotting to smash another window. But this time, I was in no mood for chaos. My mind was replaying the same points over and over. My kidnapping, Leo's appearance, Julian Dalton, the perfectly timed media storm. If this was truly a game that had been set in motion 20 years ago, then in my past life I hadn't lost to fate. I had been pushed to my death. The first thing I did when I got home was summon Chloe and Noah. Noah arrived first, wearing a hat and mask, looking like a celebrity in training trying to avoid paparazzi. Chloe burst in, exclaiming, "What's going on? Why so serious? Did someone tick you off again?" I threw the information Connor had found onto the table. They both leaned in to look. The more they read, the quieter the living room became. "This marketing firm," Noah spoke first. "I know them. They do the dirty work for people in the industry. You can't get to them without connections. It's not surprising the Daltons are involved, but these transfer accounts later on," he tapped the paper, "they have traces of the Ashford family." Chloe's face slowly turned pale. I looked at her and, for once, held my tongue. After a long moment, she asked in a hoarse voice, "You suspect my dad?" "It's not suspicion," I said calmly. "It's an investigation." She stared at the name on the paper, her knuckles white, then looked up at me. "If it's really him, I'll hand over the evidence myself." I nodded. From that day on, the three of us formed a makeshift investigation team. I provided the funding, and the Vaughn family provided the connections. Chloe was in charge of digging into the Ashford family's internal history and network. After signing with Vaughn Entertainment, Noah started using his industry channels to look into the Daltons' PR connections for me. As for me, I was responsible for putting all the pieces together. We started with the kidnapping case from all those years ago. When the case file was pulled, I knew something was wrong immediately. It was too clean, as if someone had scrubbed it beforehand. Key witness statements were missing pages. The human traffickers involved were either dead or insane. The only one still alive had been released from prison 10 years ago due to illness and had moved away. Connor's people were more resourceful than the police. They found the man in 3 days. When I saw the skeletal man in an old warehouse, his face went white the moment he saw me. "You remember me," I said, sitting in a chair and looking at him. He shivered, shaking his head then nodding. I remember, the little lost master of the Ashford family. Who told you to kidnap me?" The man was drenched in a cold sweat, his lips trembling for a long time before he managed to say, "I only know his last name was Ashford. The money was given to me by a secretary, who appeared with someone from the Dalton family." At that moment, a chill ran down my spine. I used to think my loss of control was inexplicable, but now I realized that the very first blow in my life had been aimed directly at me. Following this lead, many things came to light. Marcus Ashford had appeared to be a law-abiding citizen all these years, but secretly, he had been using Dalton family capital to build his network, funding PR firms and media outlets. Even the director of the orphanage that had sent Leo to the Ashford family had dealings with him. When I got my hands on the old orphanage files, my hands went cold. Leo wasn't just coincidentally similar. He had been chosen. There was a whole stack of photos, personality assessments, and imitation training records. There was even a note written on it: timid, obedient, easily influenced. I stared at those words, speechless for a long time. I had hated Leo, resented him for taking my place, and in my past life, I had been pushed by that invisible force to do many stupid, cruel things. But it wasn't until this moment that I fully understood that he, too, had been just a pawn from the very beginning. A pawn placed in the Ashford family. A pawn placed in front of me, waiting for me to hate him, to cause chaos, and to destroy myself. After Chloe finished reading the file, her eyes immediately turned red. "So all these years," her voice trembled, "my dad knew all along?" "He probably knew more than we do," I said. She shot to her feet and wiped her face. "I'm going to get the key to his study." That night, she returned to the Ashford mansion as if she were walking to her own execution. I hadn't planned on letting her go alone, but she had said, "If someone else had found this out, I could still lie to myself. But if it's really him, I have to see it with my own eyes." She came back at 2 in the morning, her eyes swollen, and slapped a USB drive down in front of me. "His computer has an encrypted ledger and a memorandum of cooperation with the Daltons." Her voice was hoarse. "Ethan, my dad is a real piece of work." I silently pushed a glass of warm water towards her. She sniffled and cursed again. "I'm not calling him dad anymore." The evidence was piling up, and I knew I couldn't keep this investigation under wraps by myself anymore. And just then, Victoria showed up. When she arrived, I was going over a financial statement with Noah. She stood at the door for a few seconds, her gaze falling on the scattered documents on the table, and her expression darkened. "You're investigating what happened back then?" I wasn't going to acknowledge her, but her next words made me look up. "The rooftop door at the clinic, the security guard didn't forget to lock it," she said, her voice low. "Someone opened it on purpose. The people I've traced are the same ones you're investigating now." The living room was silent for a few seconds. I suddenly understood. She wasn't here to control me. She was here to admit she was wrong. She placed a file in front of me. It contained call logs and private schedules that her people had intercepted from Marcus. Many of the key dates aligned perfectly with the plot twists in my memory. As I read, I suddenly laughed. So it turns out I wasn't born a masochist, destined to please people who didn't like me. I said softly, "Someone was pushing me all along." Victoria's face was pale. She wanted to say something, but in the end, only managed a hoarse, "I'm sorry." I looked up at her. This was the first time she wasn't ordering me around as a sister or lecturing me as an elder. She was just standing in front of me, saying she was sorry. I stared at her for a moment, then slowly looked away. "Let's focus on the important stuff first," I said. On the day of the Ashford Corporation's annual shareholder meeting, the Daltons made their move, just as expected. Marcus, along with a few shareholders he had won over long ago, tried to force my father to step down, citing the company's internal turmoil and poor decision-making due to family matters, arguing that a steadier hand was needed at the helm. He said it with such conviction. I was standing outside the conference room, and I almost laughed out loud. When the door was pushed open, all eyes turned to us. I was dressed in black, followed by the Vaughn family's legal team, Chloe, Noah, and Victoria, whose expression was terrifyingly cold. I walked in slowly and tossed a stack of documents onto the conference table. "Uncle, in such a hurry to take over? Afraid you'll miss your chance if you wait any longer." Marcus's face changed when he saw me, but he quickly composed himself. "Nonsense. This is no place for you to interrupt. Whether it is or not depends on what I have in my hand." I pulled out a chair, sat down, and smiled at him. "For example, the wire transfer records from 20 years ago for my kidnapping, the file on your collaboration with the Daltons to select Leo, or the evidence of you deliberately fueling the conflict between me and my family all these years, including your involvement in the online mob." The conference room fell silent. I pushed the evidence across the table, one document at a time, my voice low but each word landing like a hammer. "You never wanted peace for this family. You wanted chaos. You wanted my mother to lose her mind, my father to lose control, my sister to be bogged down, and for me, the true heir, to be stupid enough to fight to the death with the fake one you planted. Once we had destroyed ourselves, you could step in and play the savior. As for the Daltons," I turned to their pale-faced representatives, "if you want to swallow the Ashford family, you'd better make sure your teeth are strong enough." Marcus tried to argue, but the Vaughn family's lawyer had already played the recording. His conversations with the Daltons were crystal clear. There was even a line, "Ethan has a big temper. He's easy to manipulate. A little prodding and he'll cause a scene. Let him dig his own grave." When I heard that, I felt no anger, only a delayed sense of absurdity. In my past life, I thought I was the villain. It turns out I was just the sharpest, most disposable knife in someone else's script. My father smashed his glass on the spot. The Daltons' faces were ashen. Victoria stood beside me, her fingertips trembling. I don't remember much about how the meeting ended. I only remember that when Marcus was taken away, Chloe stood perfectly straight, not shedding a single tear. It was only after he was truly gone that she grabbed my sleeve, lowered her head, and cried until her shoulders shook. I raised my hand and patted her back. For the first time, I didn't find her noisy. Things moved quickly after that. The Dalton family, under the combined assault of the Ashfords and the Vaughns, didn't last long before collapsing. Marcus went to jail, his assets were seized, and all the people who had helped him over the years were rooted out one by one. The day Leo learned the truth, he was unusually quiet. He sat across from me, his face as white as paper. It took him a long time to ask, "So I was never kept here because I was loved, was I?" I looked at him and suddenly remembered many things. I remembered him cautiously calling me young master, how he always subconsciously hunched his shoulders, and how he, too, had just been forced to live as someone else needed him to be. "No," I said, "you were just used." His eyes slowly reddened. He looked down for a long time before saying softly, "Then I want to leave." I nodded. "Okay." Later, Victoria and I saw him off together. I didn't blame him, and neither did she. We gave him a sum of money and helped him find his biological mother's relatives, who were living out of state. Later, I heard he became a teacher teaching children, and his temperament was much calmer than before. My mother's illness also began to improve slowly after all the turmoil. It wasn't a dramatic, overnight recovery, but a gradual process of remembering me, remembering my sister, and remembering herself. She started to be willing to leave her room, to sit in the sun, and to tell me stories about my childhood. One day, she was stroking my hair and suddenly said to me, "My Ethan, you've grown up." I almost broke down right then. As for Victoria and me, it would be a lie to say there were no hard feelings left at all, but she was genuinely changing little by little. Before, she would only coldly demand that I learn the rules. Later, she learned to knock on my door with milk when I stayed up late, to gruffly ask if my company needed people, and even, after I landed my first project on my own, to awkwardly say, "Good job." I didn't laugh at her, because in that moment, I suddenly felt that while some missed opportunities can't be reclaimed, they aren't entirely beyond repair either. In the end, I didn't just become the young master of the Ashford family, nor did I just become the heir to the Vaughan family. I took resources from both sides and started my own new company. Olivia said I was finally putting my arrogant face to good use, while my father grumbled that I had grown wings and flown the coop. My mother sat on the sofa, hugging her teddy bear, and smiled. Chloe got her wish and joined the core management of the Ashford Corporation. So busy she was always on the run, yet she still found time to come to my place for free meals. Noah signed with Vaughan Entertainment, and his first movie was a massive hit. He became more famous than I was when I was being mobbed online at NYU. And Isabella, she really went to law school. She was even more incredible than I had imagined. She was such a gentle person, but in the courtroom, she seemed to glow. She later specialized in juvenile protection and anti-bullying cases. Before many of her trials, she would send me a message, telling me not to stay up too late and to remember to eat. I would always reply, "Counselor, you're overstepping your bounds." And then, the next second, I would obediently go eat. A few years later, I stood at the end of the aisle at our lawn wedding, watching her walk towards me in her wedding dress. The sun was bright, and the breeze was gentle. Both the Vaughans and the Ashfords were there. Olivia and Victoria stood on either side of me, adjusting my bow tie, one complaining about my posture, the other about my goofy smile. Mr. Vaughan and my father stood nearby, talking. My mother sat in the front row, holding that teddy bear, her eyes clear and smiling. Leo came too, bringing a handmade card from his students, and sincerely wished me a happy marriage. I suddenly remembered how, a long time ago, I was convinced I would die because of some so-called plot. But now, I was standing in the sunlight, holding Isabella's hand, surrounded by the laughter of my friends and family, with everyone I loved and who loved me right before my eyes. Turns out fate can be changed. It turns out the so-called plot can lose to the truth, to love, and to the path I carved out for myself one step at a time. I lowered my head and kissed the back of Isabella's hand, smiling as I thought, to hell with being the villain. In the end, my life is my own to command.